I have wished to Christ in 4 penitentiaries that the lunatic lovers had left me in Rockford with Henry when they split. One scene in my life I can never forget, and that was the morning when Mama had finished packing our clothes and Henry lost his inner fight for his pride and dignity. He fell down on his knees and bawled like a scalded child, pleading with Mama not to leave him, begging her to stay. He had welded his arms around her legs, his voice hoarse in anguish as he whispered his love for us. His agonized eyes walled up at her as he wailed, "Please don't leave me. You are sure to kill me if you do. I ain't done nothing. If I have, forgive me." I will never forget her face, as cold as an executioner's, which she was as she kicked and struggled loose from him. Then with the awful grin on her face, she lied and said, "Henry, honey, I just want to get away for a while, darling. We'll be back." And in his state, she was lucky he hadn't killed her and me and buried us in the backyard. As the cab drove away to the secret rendezvous with Steve sitting in his old Model T, I looked back at Henry on the porch, his chest heaving as tears rolled down his tortured face. There were too many wheels within wheels, too much hurt for me to cry. After a blank time and distance, we got to Chicago. Steve had vanished, and Mama was telling me in a drab hotel that my real father was coming over to see us and to remember that Steve was her cousin. Steve was stupid, all right, but cunning, if you get what I mean. Mama, at Steve's instruction, weeks before, had gotten in contact with my father through a hustler brother of Mama's in Chicago. When my father came through the hotel room door, reeking of cologne and dressed to kill, all I could think was what Mama had told me about that morning when this tall, brown-skinned joker had tossed me against the wall. He took a long look at me. It was like looking in a mirror. His deep down guilt cream puffed him and grabbed me and squeezed me to him. I was stiff and tense in the stranger's arms, but I had looked in the mirror too when he came in, so I strung my arms limply about his neck. When he hugged Mama, her face was toward me and stony like back there with Henry. My father strutted about that hotel room, boasting of his personal chef job for Big Bill Thompson, the mayor of Chicago. He told Mama and me, "I am a changed man now. I have saved my money, and now I really have something to offer my wife and son. Won't you come back to me and try again? I am older now and bitterly regret my mistakes of the past." Like a black widow spider spinning a web around her prey, Mama put up enough resistance to make him pitch himself into a sweat, then agreed to go back to him. My father's house was crammed with expensive furniture and art pieces. He had thousands of dollars invested in rich clothing and linens. After a week, my hustler uncle brought Steve to visit us and to case the layout. My father bought the cousin angle and broke out his best cigars and cognac for the thieves. It was another week before they took him off. Remember, at the time, I had no idea as to what really was going to happen. I would learn the shocking truth only after we got to Milwaukee. On that early evening when it happened, Mama was jittery as we prepared to visit some close white friends of my father. I had a wonderful time getting acquainted with the host children who were around my age. Too soon, it was time to go home. In my lifetime, I have seen many degrees of shock and surprise on a human face. I have never seen on any face the traumatic disbelief and shock that was on my father's face when he unlocked the door and stepped into his completely empty house. His lips flapped mutely. He couldn't speak. Everything was gone. All the furniture and drapery, everything, from the percolator to the pictures on the wall, even my Mama's belongings. Mama stood there in the empty house, clinging to him, comforting him, sobbing with real tears flowing down her cheeks. I guess she was crying in joy because the cross had come off so beautifully. Mama missed her calling. She should have been a film actress. With only a bit part in Oscar a season would have been a lead pipe cinch for her. Mama told my father we would go to Indianapolis to friends until he could put another nest together. When we got to Milwaukee by train, 90 miles away, Steve had rented a house. Every square inch of that house was filled with my father's belongings. Damn! It was filled with my father's things. Those lovely things did us little good and brought no happiness. Steve, with his mania for craps, within weeks had sold everything piece by piece and lost it across the craps table. Mama worked long hours as a cook, and Steve and I were alone quite often. Damn!